let's say that if your cause is wearing the Ukrainian pin, which I find to be repulsive and ridiculous, let's say that is you and you're a lawmaker on Capitol Hill. Ironically, if they would have accepted the early peace deal, it would have been far better for the cause of Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, geography that it controls, and lives lost. Speak about, David, how early on there was a peace deal on the table, Istanbul, Turkey. I know you mentioned this.
Right.
Tony Blinken, Boris Johnson, that if you're one of those virtue signalers that wears the Ukrainian flag pin, even for what they want, that would have been a better deal for everybody involved.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where I think that we cannot concede the moral aspect of this argument. Those of us who have wanted the United States to avoid getting deeply involved in this war, they call us pro-Russian or anti-Ukrainian, but what we're suggesting would have been the most pro-Ukrainian policy.
That's
Hundreds
the
of
irony.
thousands of hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian lives would have been saved. Their country wouldn't have been destroyed. They would have held on to all those territories in the east. It would have been better. Something like 10 million women and children have also fled the country. They're never coming back. I mean, this country is just never going to be the same. And it all could have been avoided if they had just agreed to that Istanbul deal, which was a better deal than anything they're going to get now because they have lost the war. And why did that deal not happen? Because Boris Johnson flew into Kiev and said, we want to challenge Putin, not make a deal with him. Alexei Arestovich, who at the time was a member of the Ukrainian peace delegation, who was there in Istanbul, who was there when they signed a draft of the deal. He said the Ukrainian delegation was popping champagne. They were so happy because the war was over. And then it was the Western leaders who came in and said, you can't do this deal because it doesn't fit with our interests. And what we want to do is challenge Putin. People like Boris Johnson and Victoria Nuland, they had a delusion that this war could be used to weaken Russia and then ultimately cause a regime change in Moscow. Remember when President Biden said that this man cannot stay in power? That was their unofficial policy, is they actually thought they would bring Russia to its knees. They thought that sanctions would crush Russia's economy. They thought that we could use the Ukrainian military to destroy the Russian military. And all these things would basically finally bring the hated Putin to his knees, and we'd have a palace coup in Moscow, and they would get this big regime change. And it never happened. No part of that happened. Instead, what happened is that Ukraine got completely destroyed, and now it's on its last legs. And
for full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.